Welcome to Our Table, Our Talk, a program of the Community and Family Resources Department of the City of Bloomington. In honor of Black History Month, we'll be having discussions for and about African Americans living in Bloomington. These conversations are in no way limited to only African Americans, but are designed to spark a conversation in the community. Today we'll be talking about mental health and emotional wellness. So welcome to Our Table, Our Talk. I want to just talk a little bit about African Americans and mental health issues, emotional wellness, some of the ways that we don't seek help when we need it, some of the way things are changing. I'll just say, and I was saying this in a conversation earlier, that when things happen, my mom is one of those people, you know, you suck it up and you get over it and you keep on moving. And so I think a lot of people in our community are, you know, that way, suck it up and get over it. But a lot of times we can't do that. And so how do we help diminish or erase the stigma around getting help for mental health the same way we would for physical ailments?
I think it's a lot of just normalizing. A lot of you two can have an issue, you can have a problem, you can have something come up short, and that's okay. But a lot of you mentioned that kind of do for self, or you have to be strong. You're right, it is kind of something that can hold us back a bit, but if we can just normalize and say, you too probably have an issue, I've had an issue, we can work together, that type of.
So in talking to one another about it. Yeah. I think sometimes, as in most things, men are the worst at seeking help. I mean, I think men try to be strong because, I mean, it's the maleness, it's whether you're African American or whatever. So, you know, how do we get over that as well? I don't know if either one of you have
I mean, I can state why I think we don't seek help. I think as African Americans, when we enter into a room, there are already barriers against us. There are already, if we're trying to get to know people, we already have the color that we have to deal with for people saying, hey, I'm not sure about you. And then to add a mental health component to that, that you have a chemical imbalance, I mean, that's just, I think sometimes that's just another layer. I don't know, I think that just is another layer for us to fight through.
Yeah, you know, one thing I always think about is context. When we think about Black people don't want to receive help, I also look at, well, what kind of help are we looking for? Because I think a lot of the counseling, I'm a counselor myself, it's a very Eurocentric approach. It's a very, let's sit down one-on-one and talk, and that may not be what we're always accustomed to. I look at places like a barbershop, I look at that as a place of mental health. You see people talking loud, talking across the room, kind of in a gathering space. And so maybe this approach of counseling or sit down one-on-one isn't always relatable. And I think we can kind of get that confused with, well, this person doesn't want help. I'm not sure that's the case, because who doesn't want help?
Well, I wonder if it's because I think a lot of people wouldn't recognize going to that barbershop as that place of catharsis, or that place, you know, where you go and you do receive that support. Same thing with girlfriends. You know, you get together, you have a girls' night, you have your girlfriend's night, you drink a little wine, you talk a lot, you talk about your issues, you share similar issues. But how do we get people to recognize that that's what they need? I mean, some of it just may be organic. You may just need to know, okay, it's time for a girlfriend's night. But how else do we get people to realize that, one, that that's what you need, and that sometimes that's not enough, and you do need professional counseling?
Yeah, I think that's going to listening to yourself and listening to your friends, meaning like not just listen to what they have to say, but kind of pay close attention to one another. Like, I notice you don't seem as upbeat as you used to be, or you're coming in later to work, or you seem a little more tired. I know Junior got into some issue at school. Are you guys, as a unit, are you all okay? That, you know, that kind of checking in on one another, I think that could really go a long way.
Don, you mentioned, you know, having that extra barrier, you know, being African American. If it's known that you have a mental health issue, then that also plays against you too. I also think sometimes it's the economic piece of it. I mean, counseling is not an inexpensive venture. And then finding a counselor who understands your experience as an African American person. And so I know in Bloomington, you know, we looked and found some African American counselors, but we're sort of hard pressed to do that. And I would suspect it's the same thing in the Latino community. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Get more people to come. You'll recruit more. Come on, come to Bloomington. Move to Bloomington. Move.
Yeah.
If you're a counselor of color, move to Bloomington.
Yeah.
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah. But is it important to have a counselor who understands your experience as a female, as an African American, as a male, as a Latino, as
I would look at. Go ahead.
Oh, you no, go, man. This is
I
your
would look at
thing.
this as it's a
passion.
conversation, right? It's something that you're going to invest time and effort in with someone. If I'm going to have a conversation with someone, I'm going to invest my time, invest my money. I want that person to be understanding of who I am. Now, we have the same background in terms of race, religion, all that. That could be great, but I may not get all of those combined. I may not get a package of this person fits everything. That may not always work, but I think that's a strong case to make of I need to see someone who looks like me, who will understand me. But I'm leaning more on who can understand me.
right?
More than anything.
Yeah.
But that's a valid concern I have.
It is, but I think you focus on the fact. I mean, maybe too many times we're looking for people that look like us, and you're not going to, in a town like this, you're not going to find that. And if you keep doing that, then you won't seek help at all. So I think you have to also be open to the fact that people that can get you or will work to get you are not always going to look like you. I mean, in the sense that if we went that way, then the only customers only clients you'd have would be African Americans.
Right,
so we have to be careful. You know, I'm kind of still stuck on the girlfriend night. I didn't know that all.
You didn't know that happened.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a blast. I mean,
Well, you don't have guys' night. Yeah, guys
Starting tomorrow.
okay,
Guys' night.
Or the barbershop. I mean, you still talk about the barbershop. So, yeah, that happens. I think, and to your point, I think once you get to know a counselor, then you understand that they can understand you. I think if you are reluctant to go in the first place, and then you don't see someone that looks like you, then it just makes it harder to make that first step.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But also, kind of playing devil's advocate here, there is imagine if you were to go to a session and you're explaining your perspective or educating on the other end for half the session. Imagine how infuriating that could be.
Yeah.
It's like, so you mean to tell me I pay how much money?
I'm paying you.
To tell you about my experience that you could have Googled?
Yeah, right.
You could have learned more about. I mean, not to
Sure.
make us seem like we just,
Yeah.
Google search away, but in all reality, we can research a lot of these things. So again, going back to the idea, if I'm going to invest in someone, I need them to invest back into me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think that's true.
And going back to what you said before, and I think you said it, we have been conditioned just to push through,
Or to pray it away.
pray it away, or you're schizophrenic, but yet they're saying they're going to lay hands on you, and that should go away, or you're demonized. Like we have a tendency to demonize these demonized mental health.
The mental
Yeah,
health,
that can have very dramatic and tragic results on people.
Yeah.
It's-
I mean, and it's not to disparage anyone's religion, but I think you're right, and I think a lot of times it's if you prayed hard enough, if you worked harder, if you if you did more, which then of course causes more stress, which then causes more physical ailments, and so then it just becomes this cycle, and we know that stress causes physical ailments anyway, but then it becomes a cycle.
And it's ironic because I look at any place of worship as a place of support, but ironically, that can almost become a barrier because of the thought of, well, if God put me in this position, He will not put me in a position that I cannot not handle,
Right.
right? So if this is happening, it's happening because God has intended it to happen. And that draws a lot of people away from medication.
Yes.
That draws a lot of people away from seeking professional help, if you will. I'm a fan of using a holistic approach. So we mentioned, like, I wish my therapist or my counselor would look just like me. That's probably not going to happen. I wish there was a spiritual component. Maybe that's not going to happen, but maybe if we decided, well, I'm going to reach out to my counselor, my pastor, my imam, my friends, so now we're kind of making a more holistic, more realistic surrounding support system for ourselves versus I'm going to put all in one person.
On one
this
person,
person doesn't get me. They're not supposed to just get you.
Yeah. Well, and it's about, having that, like you said holistic, but wraparound or community. I mean, it's about having a community that supports you, and that community sometimes includes medical doctors, it sometimes includes psychologists, it sometimes includes friends, barbers, whoever it is.
So maybe that's it. That is the key. That's what we're missing.
What are we missing?
Community. A community that accepts mental illness. The whole, as a community, when we start recognizing these things, like we just got through saying, more people will come out and ask for help.
Yeah.
Because there's just some people that have just lived with it forever. I mean,
Well, and I think some people don't recognize it. I mean, I have a family member that suffers from depression, and she just thought she was that person. I'm just blue. I'm just down. I just don't. But not realizing that with medication, like her whole life changed. I mean, her whole worldview changed just with that medication.
And we don't always do a good job. I'm not saying just we. I'm talking about people. Period. And particularly handing down information about our family. So we may find out that, man, it would be nice to know that my grandmother had diabetes at about the age of 20. It would be nice to know that my great grandfather had hypertension, but we don't pass these things down. So if mom, maybe she had depression, but we didn't know.
And we especially don't pass that down. I can remember, and I don't remember the movie, but I can see the scene, and there was an uncle that was locked away in a room upstairs, and somebody took food to him all the time, and you didn't go in, and you didn't bother.
Soul food.
Yes,
It was.
And they took the food up to him, but we never talked about, Uncle Bubba, whoever, he was, and had you known that your uncle had an issue, or that those kinds of things ran through your family, then you know what to look out for. I saw something recently, and somebody was putting together a medical health diary.
That's really important.
And knowing that your parents suffered from high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever it is. And so if you can do that with your physical health, you can also do that with mental health issues if we talk about them.
If we know that it's there.
If we know it's there.
Because you mentioned depression, and sometimes we may be in a depressed state and not even know.
Right.
Because we're looking at, depression means I'm sad every day, all day, and I'm crying every moment. No, it varies from person to person. It could be a lack of appetite. It could be a lack of interest. It could be a lack of concentration. It could be a combination of those things, and we just don't really know to say, these symptoms are adding up to a diagnosis. Of course, we're not going to always think that way. But it's just kind of amazing how we can do that.
And I think maybe in our community also we put too much. There's a lot of self-healing, self-medicating with alcohol, drugs,
work,
on and on and on, and we just. It's that uncle. It's just, the uncle's just, he's always drunk. But no one realizes why, no one ever asked, when did it start and why? Why did it happen? Or why does it happen,
I'm always looking at intentions of people. I'm looking at, because yes, the method probably was not the best method. I'm going to increase my alcohol intake to deal with my problem. Chances are the intent was to not have to deal with the problem. I want to get the pain away. I forget what theorist who said it. My grad teachers will be upset at me for not being able to quote who said it. But as humans, we seek pleasure and we avoid pain. That's just a natural thing that we do. So I'm looking at the intention of the person is, my intention is to get rid of this hurt. My intention is to not have to think about this. Yeah.
And I think, you know, too, we can't avoid stressors. You know, we can't avoid.
That's how you get stressed.
Yeah, that's how you get stressed.
Trying to avoid the stress.
Yeah, you can't avoid it. I mean, I think so. So I also think that there's a thing not just about mental illness, but about mental health. Period, and just staying healthy. The same way we take vitamins, exercise. You know, do whatever. That sometimes, you know, having that wusa time. You know, that
it's
you
very important.
Yeah, that becomes really important. If there are some folks out there who think or who want to know, you know, how to recognize that they might need to do something for their mental health, or, you know, what kinds of tips would you have for them?
Well, I'll always say, number one, just treat yourself. Like, that's mandatory. And I don't think people make it mandatory. We will. And by treat yourself, you can define it how you wish. I would say maybe that's making time to work out. Maybe that's making time to go to church. Maybe that's making time to
Buy another car.
Buy another car.
Oh.
Hey.
Sorry.
If that's what you do.
It's under the realm of
if that's what you
self-care.
do.
Treat yourself. But you have to, because and we have to make it a top priority, and we have to protect that time that we're making for ourselves, not just let it be.
Yeah.
Other things I would encourage would be to, can I look at my paper?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Self-compassion. Self-compassion is very important. We have to make sure we are being nice to ourselves. I always say it. We have plenty of people who are going to hate on us throughout our entire lives. Why join them?
Yeah.
Like, why join? Why join the haters? Honor your experiences, meaning if there's something that has happened to you, we can acknowledge it. It may be painful, it may not be comfortable, but when we can acknowledge it, we can see it, we can identify something, we can work with it. Also, listening to yourself, listen to your mind, listen to your body, listen to your spirit, if you will. Listen to your body will tell you at some time, you need to sit down somewhere. Like, we're done, we're tired, we're asleep, we're go to bed. If not, we will just kind of fall on ourselves. And lastly, I'll always say, become critical of our thoughts. Just because we think it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, interesting. I really like the self-compassion one, like, just sort of click in, because nobody's harder on themselves than the person themselves. I mean, you know, we're harder on ourselves than anybody. And so I think self-compassion is key.
Yeah, hug yourself.
Yeah. Or go find somebody else to hug.
Yeah.
If they give you permission.
Within reason.
Within reason, if they give you permission. Well, thank you both for being here. I'm really glad you're here. I think it's a really important conversation. I hope this conversation continues. I think especially between men and women, because I do think we have some different issues that we deal with, but, you know, just in general, good mental health should be as important as good physical health.
Absolutely.
And do what you need to do. So,
Can I hug you?
you can hug me just a little later. If you like what we talked about today, don't forget to like, comment, or share it on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us at Our Table, Our Talk.